It's 6:22 a.m. No alarm, you just opened your eyes. You shuffle to the kitchen, you start the coffee, you lean against the counter and stare at nothing for a moment, the way you used to every single morning before the dread of the day set in. But this morning is different. Your phone buzzes on the counter. One notification, $47 deposited. Overnight, while you were under the covers. Not from punching in, not from answering emails at midnight, not from grinding through another shift that left you too tired to enjoy the money you made. From owning. You think about who you were not long ago, the person who checked their bank balance with one eye closed, afraid of what they'd see. The one who got paid on Friday and was nearly broke again by Tuesday. The one who told themselves that building wealth was something other people did, people with better starts, better luck, better connections. You didn't win the lottery, you didn't land some high-paying promotion, you just stayed consistent long enough to hit a number that now quietly pays for the life you used to bleed hours to afford.
You're 28. For years, the money came in and disappeared. Rent, car insurance, groceries, a night out here and there just to feel human again. Repeat. Every 2 weeks, the same cycle. Work, spend, survive, repeat. Then the layoff scare happened. Your company restructured. 3 people from your floor were let go on a Wednesday afternoon with a box of their things and a handshake. You weren't one of them, but you sat at your desk that evening long after everyone else had gone home, staring at your account. $340 saved. That was it. $340 standing between you and complete panic. Something shifted that night. You stopped buying coffee on the way in. You canceled 2 subscriptions you'd forgotten about. You packed lunch. You sold the gaming console you hadn't touched in 8 months. Slowly, painfully, unglamorously, you saved. 18 months later, you have $10,000. You open a brokerage account for the first time in your life. It feels strange, like stepping into a room you were never invited into. You buy a Dividend ETF, something stable, something steady, the kind of fund that doesn't make headlines. At a 4% yield, that $10,000 pays you $400 a year. $400. Your streaming subscriptions, your phone bill, a tank of gas every month, paid for by money that required nothing from you. You tell a friend, he shrugs, "That's like $100 a month, what's the point?" You don't argue, you don't explain, you just nod and change the subject. That night, your first dividend hits. You stare at the amount for a long time. It isn't about the number, it's about what the number means. For the first time in your life, money moved toward you while you were standing still. You click reinvest. You watch your share count grow by the smallest possible amount. You close the app. You go to bed. You sleep better than you have in years. You're 31. The cycle that used to define your life, work, spend, survive, repeat, is broken. Not because your salary skyrocketed, not because anything fell from the sky, but because every month, without fail, a portion of your paycheck went in before you could spend it, and every dividend that landed got reinvested before you could touch it. $50,000, the same boring ETF. It pays you $2,000 a year now. You do the math on a Sunday, and you almost have to read it twice. Your utility bills for the entire year, electricity, internet, water, all of it covered. Not by overtime, not by a bonus, by shares sitting in an account you barely have to think about. You go to a birthday dinner that weekend. Everyone at the table is talking about money the way people do, loosely, carelessly, like it's infinite. One person just took out a personal loan for a vacation, another put a new couch on a credit card they're not sure they can pay off. The table laughs about being broke like it's a personality trait. You laugh too, but something is different now. You're not anxious at that table anymore. There's no low hum of financial dread underneath the evening. You eat your food, you enjoy the conversation, You split the bill without wincing. On the way home, you think about where you were 3 years ago, $340 in your account, one restructuring away from disaster. You are not that person anymore, and nobody at that table would ever know it. You're 34. 6 figures. The number that used to feel like a fantasy, like something reserved for people who grew up differently, who had parents who taught them this stuff, who never had to learn the hard way. It pays you $4,000 a year. A full year of groceries, every meal, every bag of coffee, every carton of eggs, bought by money that costs you nothing. You think about this while walking through the supermarket on a Saturday. You put things in your cart without doing the mental calculation you used to do, the one where you'd quietly subtract from your balance and wonder if you'd make it to the next payday. That calculation is gone. Then a message arrives. An old coworker, someone you used to commiserate with about bills and budgets over lunch, says he found a stock paying 11% monthly dividends. He's already in. He wants to know if you want the ticker. You look it up. The yield is real. The stock is not healthy. It's down 50% over 18 months. The dividend is being funded by a company quietly falling apart. The high yield isn't a reward, it's a symptom. When a yield looks that good, it means the market already priced in the collapse. The dividend will be cut. The price will keep dropping. By the time most people realize what happened, they've lost far more than they ever received. You message him back. You tell him to look at the stock chart before putting money in. He says he already did. He says it's on sale. You say nothing more. 3 months later, he tells you the dividend got slashed, the stock dropped again, he's down 35%. You keep your boring ETF. You keep your $4,000. The lesson at 6 figures isn't about finding better opportunities, it's about not destroying the ones you already have. A high yield is almost never generosity, it's almost always a warning. You're 37. $250,000 sitting quietly in an account, doing its job. It pays you $10,000 a year. Your car costs every payment, every tank of gas, every insurance renewal. Handled, not by your salary, by your portfolio. You realize this on a Monday morning, in traffic that isn't moving. The car beside you is brand new, expensive, spotless. The driver is hunched over the wheel, visibly tense, jabbing at his phone. You don't know his story, but you recognize the posture. You wore it for years, that particular tension that lives in your shoulders when every unexpected expense feels like a threat. You drive a car that's 5 years old, nothing special, nothing to impress anyone, but it's paid off, it runs fine, and it owes you nothing. His car probably costs him $700 a month. Yours costs you the memory of discipline. That evening, you sit with your numbers. The portfolio is larger than last month. It is always larger than last month. Not because the market is always up, it isn't, but because you never stopped adding. You never cashed out during a dip. You never let fear make the decision that patience was supposed to make. You remember something a colleague once told you, years ago, back when you were still checking your account balance with dread. She said, the most dangerous financial move most people make isn't spending too much, it's stopping too early, seeing small numbers and deciding it isn't working. You didn't stop. And now, at 37, while most people your age are still running the same paycheck-to-paycheck cycle you escaped, you are, quietly and without anyone knowing, being paid to drive. You're 40, $500,000. It pays you $20,000 a year, the basic shape of a life. Rent, food, utilities, transportation covered, not replaced entirely, but cushioned in a way that changes everything about how you show up. This is the number where something psychological breaks open. You're in a meeting on a Thursday afternoon. The energy in the room is anxious. budget cuts might be coming, management is restructuring again, the same low-level fear that used to live in your chest is clearly living in everyone else's, but not yours. You sit in that meeting and you feel the difference between people who need this job and someone who has chosen to be here. It's not arrogance, it's not indifference, it's just space. A few inches of breathing room between you and the panic everyone else is swimming in. You stay, you contribute, you do your work well, but you stay because you want to, not because you have no other option. You drive home that evening and you think about the version of you at 28, the one with $340 in savings, the one who sat alone at their desk after the layoff scare, wondering how things got so fragile. That person saved their way to $10,000. That $10,000 grew, quietly, over 12 years into this. $500,000 doesn't make you free. Freedom is more complicated than a number. But it gives you something that cannot be bought directly. It gives you the ability to say no to a bad situation, to a toxic environment, to a life that doesn't fit without the floor collapsing underneath you. And that changes everything about how you live. You're 43. $1 million. You don't announce it. You don't feel the need to. The apartment is the same. The routine is the same. The person in the mirror looks exactly like someone who packs their lunch and drives a 5-year-old car. But the number is real. It pays you $40,000 a year, a full salary produced entirely without your labor, deposited into your life while you sleep, while you eat, while you sit in traffic, while you do absolutely nothing. You open a tax calculator one evening out of curiosity. You type in $40,000, qualified dividends, current tax year. The result comes back 0. You check it twice. It's accurate. Below a certain threshold, qualified dividends are taxed at nothing. While your colleagues lose nearly a third of their paycheck before it even reaches them, every dollar of your $40,000 is entirely yours. You sit with that for a long time. You think about all the overtime hours, all the taxable income you chased when you were desperate, all the dollars that passed through your hands on their way to somewhere else. This is different. The next morning at work, everything looks the same from the outside. You're at your desk, you're in your meetings, you're responding to the same emails. But underneath all of it is a stillness that wasn't there before, a quiet that has nothing to do with success and everything to do with security. $1 million doesn't buy a dramatic life. It buys a calm one, the kind where you sit in an ordinary chair on an ordinary Tuesday evening and realize that you are, without fanfare or spectacle, completely okay. No one's permission needed. Not anymore. You're 46. $1.5 million. It pays you $60,000 a year, not touching the principal, not drawing it down, just living off what it naturally produces, year after year after year. You read a financial study over your morning coffee. It says the average person now believes they need $1.46 million saved before they can retire comfortably. You look at your account. You're already past it. You set your mug down slowly. Outside, the world is doing what it always does. People rushing, people stressed, people trading their hours for dollars and their dollars for things that don't hold value. The same loop, the same treadmill you stepped off quietly, without a press release, without anyone noticing. You think about the night of the layoff scare. $340 in your account, sitting alone at a desk in an empty office, trying to figure out how your life got so fragile. You think about the first $10,000, the Dividend ETF nobody had heard of, the $400 a year your friend called pointless. It wasn't pointless. It was the first brick. You open your laptop. You write a short email to your manager. You thank them for the years. You tell them today is your last day. You hit send. No countdown, no announcement, no party. Just the same quiet feeling you had the very first morning a deposit arrived while you were sleeping. Calm, certain, still. The study says $1.46 million is the number people need to feel safe. You got here not because you earned more than everyone else, or started with more, or got lucky at the right moment. You got here because one day, when you were tired and scared and had $340 to your name, you made one decision and refused to undo it. You chose patience over everything that wanted you to be impatient. You chose the long game in a world that rewards the short one. And now, on a completely ordinary morning, with a cup of coffee and nothing urgent on your calendar, you own your time. All of it, for good.